Hey,
Oh, hi everyone.
hey, Maki.
Hey,
Hey, Andor.
hey, how's it going? We are good morning, afternoon, or evening. But where are you calling from, Eric, today?
I'm in the south of France.
You're seeing noise everywhere.
I can't hear you. Something's up with your audio.
Oh, that's why. Is that
Ah,
better?
yeah, yeah.
Um, South of France. Okay. You seem like you're always everywhere. Sometimes you're in.
No, I'll be, yeah, I will be here I think mostly through the end of the year.
Okay. What about you, Monkey? Where do you call from?
Hey, Maki, you're in New York, right?
Hello, sorry, I'm on the move right now. So I'm between New York, the Middle East these days, in the Middle East, Dubai. So yes, Huh.
Very
Welcome,
good.
Daniel.
Hello.
Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Good to see you.
See you guys as
Uh,
well.
I
Mhm.
love the background. We are waiting on Daryl. So Daryl is going to be leading this meeting, so hopefully he shows up. Otherwise, we can just talk dress registers or do something else.
Uh,
I mean, I can tell you guys, I'm guessing if it's at all of any interest, I can talk a little bit about some of the agentic registry stuff happening
oh,
in the
yeah.
market,
Love to hear that.
if that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that will be great. Also, if you can speak about the mentors, group. So what's happening? If there's any spots to be filled for mentorship, so that will be great. So both of those topics,
oh,
if you
for
can.
for labs? Yeah, so that's a good point. So labs is a different thing, but yeah, we can talk about that as well. Because we're gonna be moving off agenda if Cheryl doesn't show up in the next minute. Actually, we'll just move off. 4708. Okay, so um, okay. Start with the labs thing, then we'll move on to the agentic registry piece. So, for those of you that don't know, we have a show and tell coming up. Let me just share the screen here.
Who's we?
Diff
Yeah.
does.
Yep.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
And we have three really interesting projects that are being shown and told. Um, legally binding proof of personhood for verifiable credentials via QES. This is how do you make a verifiable credential legally binding in the EU? We have privacy preserving revocation mechanisms. It's a survey of all the revocation mechanisms in the market and looking at the trade offs between them. And then anonymous multi-sig verifiable credentials, which is how do you make a verifiable credential that's signed by multiple parties. I think all these projects are super interesting. And anyways, we have a mentor's pool for each cohort. And so we closed off bed cohort 2 mentorship. Um, but so Maki, to answer your question, the next cohort will be opening up mentorship, and we're actually gonna be opening up quite a bit of seats. So, um, we generally have a pretty small set of mentors. So, I think as we go to this next cohort, we'll definitely ask if you want to get involved, and anybody else that wants to get involved as well. One of the things we're realizing is we need probably a larger mentor pool to help
Hmm.
out.
Yeah, that's really great. So in terms of the delivery of the three projects, so in terms of deadlines, when are they expected to be closed?
Yeah, great questions. You're asking good questions. It is going to be happening. Actually, I can share my screen here. 23rd. In fact, the post was just shared yesterday. Share this out for the folks that want to look at this. Here's the post, and there is a Luma. If you click to listen in, you'll see the Luma, and so you can just join in.
Listening. All right.
What's that?
I said listen in. So that's a new thing. I don't know what's this Numa. Is that another platform?
Luma's another platform. Yeah. That's where everybody's going now.
Yeah,
They
I think
actually do a much better job than most other platforms for event management.
okay.
It actually makes it really easy to do event management now. They used to be very hard.
Mhm.
I'm sure it's. I have it on my. Let's do this. Cool.
So it seems they are on extended deadlines, isn't it? Because I've seen, 31st of August,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
the
So the
delivery date.
deadlines got extended because we were struggling to match the right mentors. This was an issue we realized during the cohort that the mentor pool was not giving enough. Frankly, we wanted to bolster the products better than what we had with the mentor pool. Everybody was super busy, and we didn't have we needed a few expertise in certain areas, and so we ended up having to solve that problem. And so it took a while to get the matching going. And so we ended up extending the deadline to September. And so yeah, this will be about 3 months work.
Excellent.
Cool. Any questions on that?
Um,
Good, sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, the legally binding proof of personhood. That's interesting. I thought that was the the PID, the person identifier that's issued by the member state and signed by the member state. Isn't that in and of itself legally binding proof of personhood?
And while, sorry,
No,
and/or before you answer, can you
yeah,
either send I guess I can do it, labs.identity foundation. I'll do that, sorry.
yeah. No, you're good. Here's the link.
I can do that. Okay, thank you. Now it's bigger, I
All
can
right.
read it.
Yeah, no. It's a good question. It's not. I mean, it gets issued, right? But then these are actually the signatures, for example, that you'd use in signing an attribute. That's maybe more than just a PID. So you can actually sign a contract if you wanted to with this, right? And so the question is how do you make sure a human and additional attributes, including your personal credentials, are in QES. It's actually, yeah, I don't think PIDs they're the identifier, but they're not a VC, or I don't think they are. Maybe they are. 1 second.
I think they,
But this is different.
Okay.
I think PID is just personally identifiable data, so it doesn't,
I don't think
is
it's
that
the
also
same.
a technical term with IIDIS? EIDIS?
1 second. So
Right, yeah, so PID is defined in EIDS, and it defines what elements, the schema for a PID, what's required. And as a biometrics guy, I was kind of pissed that the biometrics was excluded at the beginning, and then after some arguing, then they added it as optional. But how could you associate a human with their data without a biometric? I mean, ICAO did that in '95 by requiring a biometric.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there's the proof of personhood. Its problem itself has a few different approaches. Um, I mean, I'll just quickly show you. I don't know if you've seen this list that I put together.
yeah.
Have you seen this or no?
I
Or
have
Uh,
not. No, this.
so this is a list of all the approaches, and I actually give 4 approaches, not actually. So there's biometrics, and then those get classified into general and specialized hardware. I actually think there's this another class. So if you look at Vitalik's post on this, he classifies 3 approaches. I'll just show you real quick. And I actually think there's a 4th. So I actually think he was incomplete. It's probably the only time I'm ever going to say that about Vitalik. So this is the map he gives on the approaches toward proof of personhood. And I actually think there's a 4th column here, which is proof of work, which covers all the CAPTCHA and sort of like things you do in your browser today, as an example, with its own weaknesses and strengths. But the point is anyways, there's 3 or 4 depending on how you look at it. That's all in this awesome awesome proof of personhood repo, and then you can see some of the approaches, and there's again different value for each of them.
Interesting. The when we talk about identity assurance levels and going through an identity proofing process, most standards, including like NIST 863, the number one desired outcome of identity proofing is establishing uniqueness. I don't know that you could establish uniqueness very well with a sociograph, and with how that was rated higher than biometrics is ridiculous. You have Aadhaar as an example. I worked on Aadhaar. You had to uniquely identify 1.4 billion residents of India. How do you do that with a sociograph? I think
Again,
that,
there's different approaches. I'm not like gonna. I think what I've seen is I actually think you need a hybrid approach. Even biometrics isn't perfect. There are challenges with it. Um, and so you ideally need, and this is partly, if you actually look at how the first person project works in technically, not avoided the messaging around it, it actually takes in both. So you can do a mix of biometric based approaches with the social graph based and add a layer. I think that's actually the most powerful, the two. So it's actually combining both together because you get the guarantees of the biometric piece, but then you also get the additional information fidelity of the social graph together, and then that gives you just additional attestation. It's essentially layers. Like in my, oops, did we lose him? We lost him.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, all right. Sorry, you were
I
saying
think
something?
the difference, and this is a thing that I'm also diving into with the first person project is um, the uniqueness. And I know that you don't need to deduplicate when you're doing a big database. You need to do this deduplication phase before you actually start issuing credentials, so that you can. Well, the deduplication phase is if you already have an existing database and you want to make sure that you don't have doubles. But if you're creating a database from scratch, then the uniqueness, you're not trying to create a global database for the entire world, you're doing it for your community. And I guess that if you start by issuing, then then how do you just make sure that you're not doubling up on
Yes,
on
this is where
on
yeah. So to your
yeah,
point, Eric, there's the PHC provider. If you look at how first person project works,
yeah,
um, there's this thing called the PHC provider. And the PhD provider's responsibility is to issue a unique. That's the uniqueness requirement that gets fulfilled. It's as
and
simple
so
as
it's unique within that community.
yeah. And so
And
yeah,
yeah, you're not trying to, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, no. That's exactly it. So it's unique within the community. You can have a network or a trust network that deduplicates against itself or figures out like how to limit the amount of possible dupes. So you could use a biometric, like World obviously has a biometric approach. So you could use it as a PhD provider if you wanted to, but then you get the social graph after that. If yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean that's
So I think also, Dan, when they're issuing these personhood credentials, you might, yeah, you use whatever judgment to make, whatever assurance level you need to issue it. And then I guess if someone else is going to, if that person is going to try it again, then whatever mechanism that you use to issue it first, they'll recognize that it's a duplicate. And so you're kind of managing your uniqueness within your community. But yeah, and I think that, yeah, I'm with you. I think the biometrics, there's some really interesting stuff happening with biometrics in terms of how the templates are being stored, how they're being hashed, all that kind of stuff. And so I think we shouldn't sort of be scared of that. It's just the centralized aspect of it that scares people.
it's very
yeah,
hard to do the uniqueness problem. That's I think the hardest part is if you actually get into it, like the uniqueness piece, doing it without compromising, like revocation of uniqueness is basically the challenge, the biggest issue with I think Daniel, like, and I've heard both sides, and I'm not going to give you like the only thing I'll say is that I think layering helps. I'm not going to like say like biometric sucks or social sucks because there's that different strengths and weaknesses. But the challenge is with the biometric approach in particular, is the challenge of revocation if you really want to be forgotten. And I mean, that is a huge issue, right? Like, I've never done these like 23andMe tests or anything like that, because like once the data is gone, like unlike a social graph where you can just like start afresh, you really can't with the biometrics approach. If it's caught to your identity, that's pretty fundamental. So I mean, maybe that's a desirable attribute, the challenge of revocation, but I think that piece in particular throws people off, and that piece in particular is the hardest one. Like, how do you restart your identity if you want to? Is that a desirable trait, to never be able to restart your identity or revoke it? Um, so I don't know, but that's kind of the one thing that is a little challenging, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
All
And
right.
that's why some countries, including the US, does not and probably will not have a national ID. Um, No, with real ID in the US, it's up to the states that issue driving licenses to check with every other state before issuing one to establish uniqueness that way. But they establish uniqueness within the state, typically using biometrics, typically using face. And then when they check every other state to make sure that I don't have a driving license, they use first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So quickly, since we're in the TRTF, it's a good conversation, and certainly, like, if we want to get into proof of personhood problems, like, I think they need, yeah, that's like hours and hours and hours, and we should, but check out I think the that's fun, yeah. See, the thing, Daniel, in India, at least in India, they have all these backup CPSs. So this is like the interesting part. They're actually way more resilient. I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, uh, what's it called? Anti-fragility. Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
So it's not the concept of it's the concept that, not that things won't break, but that when they break, they don't break as bad, and that you're able to recover. And so, like India, because it's gotten so used to power outages, everything has redundancies baked in. So when they do have a major power outage, they have generators across Wazoo. They know how to deal with these problems. Like, this is part about owning a house in India. In the US, when we have a fire hazard or something like that, when like fire happens or earthquakes, we don't have like anything here. Like, nobody has a generator, nobody has backups, and basically we're
Preppers
hosed.
do.
Huh?
The preppers do.
The preppers do, yeah. But the general population is just like, we don't have backup fuel. Like, and this happens, every once in a while, and we're basically caught off guard, and it's a really big issue. All right. Anyways, I'll wait. I'll shut it.
You're absolutely right. I remember, when we were preparing for Aadhaar meeting in Bangalore, these big meetings with, in my case, Accenture folks, there was so many power outages, like Andrew was saying, but like the first one, all of us, folks from the US, Westerners, like freaking out. What do we do? And the rest of the people continue presenting as if the power never went out. They're just, the PowerPoint went away, but they're still talking to the slide that wasn't there. We're all like scrambling. Anyhow.
You
That's
hear a funny,
100%.
want to hear a
It's
funny
actually
story?
it's a really important concept. I think it's so basically, it's, at the systems get better as they get stressed, and they get more resilient, and it's actually good to introduce failure into your systems, just because you need to be able to handle the ability to recover. And if you never fail, and then all of a sudden you fail one day, you're generally caught unprepared. So it's actually, anyways, I'll leave. That was one thing. So I wanted to talk about quickly the agent registries and the differences between agent registries versus our human registries. So when we talk about agent registries, like, generally the biggest issue is the high. There's a couple issues. One is the high volume that we're probably going to see, the fast, the speed at which these volumes will come up and down. That's very ephemeral, and the privacy requirements that are going to change depending on the context at which these registries want to share what type of information and capabilities they do. So when you think about humans, generally, we have 6 billion humans on the planet. We don't have a registry for every single human. We have organizations with registries, and that's relatively, limited. So, like, what's the biggest organization out there, you know, probably a few 100,000 people. I don't know. Like, what's the largest organization in the world?
I think the Chinese government is like over 1 million. Accenture's pushing 800 million right now. So I think we're the fourth largest private company in the
Wow,
world.
800 million?
No, 800,000. Sorry,
800,000. Okay.
almost 1 million. I meant to say. Sorry.
So anyways, it's under, let's say it's under 10 million. Fair. Is
Yeah,
that probably fair, right?
yeah,
And generally humans are not like living and dying like every day. Like we have a lifespan that's 90 years or 75 years right now, current average life expectancy. So like even the onboarding into a new company and so forth, you can spend a pretty good amount of resources getting somebody registered into your organization and the process for that. And so it's manageable at the current systems that we're dealing with, right? And where the agentic registry becomes difficult is like imagine that you were like living and dying every single day, and that we're starting not to get to like instead of 10 million, we're getting to hundreds of millions to billions. Potentially, right? We don't know what the limit will be, but essentially, imagine every human has 10 agents. Your internal organizations have agents. Like, there's all these tons of agents. Sorry, go ahead. Okay.
Yep.
So the question is how do you index and manage that piece, right? And the thing is with agents, they have just like humans capabilities. So you know, humans can do things like you have your accountants and they're capable of doing accounting processes, but they may not be able to do the legal process. So when we onboard somebody, we bring them onto teams, and then we have different systems like RBAC and all these other access control systems, and those access control systems manage the humans' capabilities and what they're permissioned to do. And within those, humans still screw up sometimes, but generally you go from like intern and you escalate up in privilege, and those escalations give you more capability permissions, right? And with agents, you're going to need something similar, again, but at different scales and in different velocities, because your agents, first of all, and the dangers of, you know, if you think about like agents, it is more similar to like how in like the CIA, you don't want agents to secretly be disclosing things they shouldn't be to other team members. Like in the CIA, sometimes the agents need to be super private and like not tell other people like what they're working on. But imagine like if every agent asked each other's agent like what they can do. And it turns out one of those agents was working on a super secret project and it disclosed it. And now all the agents in the network of the AI agents know the super secret project they were never supposed to do, including ones that are talking to customer service and all these other things. Right? So that's not like a bad situation. So these are like all different requirements that agents have that humans kind of we've managed. And so this is a paper that you're seeing right now, which is the NAEU Registry. This is an example of, I think, at least bring it to point that there is a problem and a potential solution. You can argue with it, and we can have discussions about it. But the concept of we're going to need to, in a network of agents, find agents and discover them in appropriate ways, both internally in your horizon in your organization and externally as well as an agent's talking across trust boundaries. And so this approach basically provides a sort of two-layer approach. It has three, and we can go to the three, but like in general, it has a lean index layer, and that's like static, and then like just kind of like cities, they don't get registered that often. Think about organizations registering like a larger agent every once in a while. But then within that, there's routing that happens to a dynamic routing layer that is much more flexible, but slower to find and crawl things. So this would be this like dynamic resolution layer. So that there's this like lean fast layer and then this dynamic resolution layer, and that's their approach they're proposing for solving this problem around this like challenge of scaling an index. And then the last thing I'll say here is, like, if you look at how you index these problems today, the Google does misses your like, you know how long it takes when you make an update to your website, how long it takes for Google to cache that? It can take like sometimes weeks or months for Google to catch those updates to the website and index it, right? Because crawling the entire web, it takes a freaking long amount of time. We don't have months for an agent to be discovered. It must be much quicker. So this is where another problem is with agents that you don't necessarily get in the current challenges. So these are all things that agents we're going to have to deal with that are unique. And so when we start to think about agent registries, it also brings some of those difficult challenges and like problems we need to solve.
Mm.
So yeah, I'll pause there and ask any and happy to answer any questions. Oh, last thing I'll say is just as we think about identity identifiers that get registered for these agents, as these AI agents are navigating around in the world, the identifiers internally and externally might be different. So you might have internal registry identifiers, like, hey, internally in the organization, this is what your agent is called. And then externally, though, you might have another type of registry identifier, which is like, hey, this is what I share with you externally, and this is how I'm represented externally. So I'm pretty
Mm.
bullish on personally, like DIDs being the external identifier. That makes a lot of sense. So externally, every agent would have a DID that they can share with the rest of the world to say, hey, this is my DID. But internally, you might have a completely different type of there's type of identifiers called like SPIFFE IDs and all these other things. Like that might be the way that you resolve things internally. So you can
Mm.
change across horizons as well as like what how do you actually call the agent? So I'll pause there and answer any questions. But yeah, that's like just high level some of the challenges of the agentic registries.
Mm. I mean, I imagine that it's like everything, it's sort of the marketplaces will sprout up. They're already sprouting up. The sort of the avenues, the well-trodden paths towards agent suppliers or your existing relationships are now offering agents, and so you've already got that trusted relationship. But what are these DIDs actually pointing to? Because I mean, if you got a DID, obviously it resolves to a DID document or whatever. But so the endpoint of an agent today, like what is that sort of edge that
Yeah.
says, all right, this is where I hitting an agent, and that is we talk about, is it persistent? Does it need to be persistent? Should it be persistent? All that kind of stuff. And what's behind all that endpoint?
Yeah, it's good question. So there are various protocols, for example, MCP and A2A. So my guess would it would be resolving to those sort of protocols. So after discovery, you find the agent, you figure out it's actually useful and capable, and that's a whole capability negotiation process, which doesn't really exist today. There's some proposals around this. So it's like essentially first I find you. Think about how we do this as humans, right? First I find Eric, then I say, hey Eric, what are you capable of doing, and are you useful to what I'm trying to do, right?
Yeah.
And if I've determined like, hey, yes, there is some value in me having further connection, then I'll actually do some interactions with you. I might like start working with you. And in the same way, sorry.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
and so,
I'm talking about like what is it, I mean, if you give an agent a DID,
yep,
that what is, if you give a human, we know that we know what the human is, or we
yep,
know what a machine has it's a fixed object, but these agents are so amorphous in some ways. And so I'm wondering if that's, when you've got a registry, and especially I was looking at that 3-layer thing, and you're saying that you got this initial layer, which is kind of just to channel people into this big space, which is pretty stable and fast, and you get things done. And then as you get to the lower layers, it gets a little bit more expansive and complex. And then those DIDs and IDs may differentiate once you move through the layers,
hmm
depending on public facing versus what's internal. And so just the question is, what is that agent that is attached to the DID, to that identifier?
yeah. So what happens is these all get resolved to some metadata as a starting
Yeah,
point. So
right.
and that metadata in this paper they're calling it agent facts, but if you go to A2A, there's agent cards.
Yeah,
But essentially, it's a metadata layer that's the expression of identity for these agents.
right.
That metadata starts the process. There are challenges with this, like because as they share, like, here's my business card, essentially, right? This is the thing that I do. Like when you give a business card to a person, it says like what your capability is in terms of like my role, right? I'm a
Yeah,
consultant for X company, right? Yada yada. Like you may not want the agents to be as disclosive, and you might want to be careful. Like you might need to disclose more and less at the same time, depending on the context.
yeah,
So that's a challenge, but you can imagine once you've connected and found the DID, you just selectively disclose some agent card or fact that describes what you're
right.
capable of doing. That's kind of what this looks like. Um,
Yeah. I like that. I like that you said it's an expression of it. And so if you take this as the agent card or whatever, is there anything in there? I guess so. the NANDA ID, the agent ID with the NANDA value. I mean, I guess if we're, is there anything that's sort of behind these HTTP, anything behind these values that can be updated and changed without the agent card changing as well?
Yeah, so I mean the DIDs don't have to change necessarily for the agent card to change. So you can
Right.
keep the DID same and it just resolves to a different agent card.
Mhm.
So you can see this. This is an example of how I've described like agent identity and how
Mhm.
that fits in.
Mhm.
So
Because you can keep that same identity and then change the capabilities or change the goals or change the context without changing the agent identity, right?
yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, oh, Maki's got his hand up.
Yeah, Maki, go ahead.
No, actually, I just wanted to say that in terms of our thinking in the C2PA ecosystem with respect to agent cards, that those are subject, could be subject to continuous, enhancements and changes. So maybe, at certain points, you would want to add more responsibilities to the agent. You might want to do some version control as well. So the initial thinking, at least, that, those should be evolving.
Mhm.
But as you said, like it's not necessary that you couple both the DID and the agent card. But at least from an agent card perspective, it would require changes and reflecting what version you are at, and any kind of new responsibilities added or changed. So yeah, because it's going to be your the way other agents will discover how they can collaborate with you. So I think with an agent, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah.
Daniel, your hands up. Good call out, Mike. Maki.
Yeah, no, this is very interesting. I think the toughest thing I think is going to be understanding the capabilities and having a common dialogue. I mean, coming, having some support for law enforcement. We call it a universal criminal code, but every state has a different code for a crime, and the same crime could be a misdemeanor in one state and a felony in the other, and there's no universality. So when we say this agent has this capability, well, what does that mean to another agent if they're not, unless we have a defined capability structure? After September 11th, which today is the 24th anniversary, we came up with NEAM, the National Information Exchange Model, because we didn't have a common exchange between agencies, especially law enforcement agencies. So NEAM was to come up with a common diction, a common protocol and schemas across these different agencies. So unless we have a similar thing for capabilities, capability X and capability Y might be the same thing, but just described differently. I don't know. I think
No,
that's going to be the
it's a
toughest.
really good point. I mean, semantic interoperability across agents is going to be super important,
Yeah.
and we don't really have anything today. And people aren't working on this, by the way. This is like an area that is open waters. Good.
Well, I think part of it is what tools do you have access to? Like if you say that my capability is web searching, and then you don't give it access to a web search tool, or you don't get, so you can say what you can say what your capabilities are, but what I always think of when you go to a labor site in I mean, people would guys that need labor will drive by with a pickup truck, and this is like in places probably in the US, but I've seen in Africa, and the guys are there with a tool, and you pick the people, like that guy has a hammer, that guy has a saw, that guy has this, and that's what I need. And so you express your capabilities by what kind of tools you have access to. And I think that might be part of the solution.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, to combining the two things I said, I had experience with biometrics and law enforcement. When we set up US Visit, the biometric system for the US for biometrically checking on third country nationals, and Andor mentioned CIA. Well, we had to put something in, a silent hit for those. So if a CIA agent is coming in to the US undercover as a whatever, a French businessman, we could not, we had to give a silent hit. Even if they were in the database, we couldn't say that, oh yeah, we've identified this person. So
What's
we
a
have a
silent hit?
tool to do a biometric search, but we have another tool that we don't want to disclose that we can have a silent hit on a biometric search. Right.
That's crazy. Yeah, exactly. This is interesting. Huh.
So how are you guys, so is this, in terms of Trust Registry Task Force and the TRQP, this is, I mean, the QP is stable, it's been commented on, it's sort of in production, it's rolling. Is there, what's like the future vision of this this working group?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're talking with Daryl. I think we want to get PRO2 out, so we have this
Yeah.
new public review. And then the reason I'm bringing up the agentic stuff is because, so I don't know if you guys are familiar, DIF is starting an AI trusted agent, the AI agents working group. That is a new working group starting at the end of the month, and likely one of the areas will be focused on agentic registries, just to understand better, what are the requirements. It's just we've seen a number of people say, hey, I want to focus specifically on agent registries.
Mhm.
And so what I'd love to do is examine how that's going to play out with the TRQP and understand better the dynamics between them. It would
Mhm.
be great if TRQP doesn't need to be updated at all. But I think that's how I would see some of that information flowing back. But right now, we need better references on, where are going to be the challenges that traditional systems would not have been challenged on? Like, what are the unique requirements that we'll need to consider? And then how do we bridge across those? Is that your hand up, or is that intentional or unintentional?
Yeah, it's intentional.
Okay, go
Too
first.
late. The, so the Trust over IP is also spinning up a task force, as part of the AIM working group on trustworthy agents as well. So how do we coordinate and sort of understand what you guys are doing, other than, me joining your working group as well? Um,
Yeah. So I
so-
mean, I know a lot of the focus is on TSP, which is great. And so what we're doing, the first working item that is being tackled in this working group is going to be focused on, and welcome, Scott. We were discussing agentic registries and how that fits into the picture. So this is how this kind of conversation came. But the basically the first working item is about agent authority use cases, and it's specifically focused on how will agent delegation be challenging, and what are the use cases that will need agent delegation.
Mhm.
And I think the ultimate idea is to have a framework to think about trust. And in that framework that we think about trust and how we think about the problem around how to evaluate tools, things like TSP become evaluated, and most likely one of the better recommendations, if not the best recommendation, around how do you create trusted AI agents. So it's like essentially all the work that you guys are doing is fantastic because it filters in and basically feeds the reference sort of holistic work we're looking at, just on again trying to take an unbiased approach. So I think the first problem we're tackling is looking at OCAPs and OAuth and all those sort of systems, and taking a look and seeing how those are going to work. And then eventually we'll move over to to communication protocols and just see where things are at. If you're looking at most of the agent protocols today, they're mostly built on RPC, and that's the communication protocol they're using. So it's like RPC, sometimes with it, sometimes with OAuth, and that's kind of how most of these agent protocols work.
Okay, well, I'll keep you updated on what we're doing, because we've got a task force, which is part of the working group. And the task force is specifically a trusted AI agent framework. And so, I'll make
Okay.
sure to share that with you.
Perfect.
And the idea is not to do all the work, it's to establish a framework where all this work that's happening can be sort of organized and conceptualized so that people can make sense of it.
Yeah, that does seem like that has a lot of overlap. So that's
Yeah.
great. We can definitely collab on that and discuss how that looks.
Cool.
Again, we're it's a super early working group, right? It's starting early this next month. So there's lots of range for us to move around and change things. I think the only one that's been settled right now is the agent authority use cases, and that's the starting
Yeah.
point.
Mm. Cool.
Cool. any other comments, questions? Scott, you just came here. Anything on top of mind, or we will close out?
No, I didn't really have, I wanted to see, I had a conflict for most of this meeting, just wanted to see where we stand with this. So that's,
The current goal
seems
is
like, you know,
PRO2 done by the end of the month. That's the current plan. So,
okay,
and then
sounds good.
it'll go to public review, and then we will push it out, and then it should be sitting there for a while. Like it's mostly there, it's just editorial changes to the spec, and then it should be good.
Excellent. All righty.
Cool. Well, great.
Good
Catch
stuff.
you guys
Thank
later.
you.
Bye, guys.
All right, see ya.
All right,
Thank you.
see you.